Hey, so this is Transplatform, a game by Stephen Lavelle, aka increpare. It's about undergoing hormone therapy, and it came out actually 3 years before Dysphoria in 2009. And essentially, it's you're going through the process of transitioning. It's not that I think I'm ugly; it's just that this body doesn't feel right. That's what the text says. So you're in sort of these male masculine role, and the environment. Feels pretty strange. I don't know what that thing is down. That looks like a person lying down. I'm not sure. There's a lot of like eerie details, but essentially this seems to be divided between like a light and dark space. And these things that you collect, I'm not sure what they're supposed to represent exactly. Maybe something that's guiding you further, but this is saying maybe something about how the reality isn't necessarily harmful to you, but there's all these things on the periphery, sort of inside you that are much more harmful that are being repressed, and that like big light maybe is suggesting some sort of realization or something that's very very harmful to you. I just like, even though this is a game that is much older and Stephen Lavelle is not very proud of it at all, even in like, he said this was just a game that he was working on to like figure out this framework or whatever, and yeah, but like I still think it's really interesting the way that it communicates, like through this very simple mechanics and simple imagery, in a way that is very subtle, and in a way that I don't know. I don't think that you get from something like Dysphoria, even though it's a maybe better representation of what transitioning is actually like. This is maybe a better representation of kind of how it is to walk through an environment and feel and sort of experience the day-to-day stuff, like as you're going through transitioning. I find all the images of like women's bodies sort of reinforcing these kind of gender norms and just gender stereotypes to be really interesting too. It's like something that you're acutely more sensitive to. I don't know what that like green stuff is. Maybe it's something radioactive. The hazards in this game are kind of weird, but you just have to go with it. I hope the GP doesn't think I'm crazy. I don't think I'm crazy. GP is general practitioner. So I love this part the most because it's so disturbing. These guys in the raincoats, they're, when their eyes turn red, that's when you're not supposed to pass. And when their eyes turn red, you can actually see them lifting their arm like they're about to touch you. And it's really creepy because it's actually something that I deal with a lot with street harassment. You never know what side of a person you're going to get. Like, if you're going to get somebody in a shitty mood who just decides that to take it out on you and like put harm to your body. And so like just in a simple like pixel and just very, very subtle symbolic changes, it really conveys something kind of terrifying about the experience of just walking down the street being trans, or walking down the street being a woman, really. The other things in the environment, like maybe just more representative of how the environment feels more and more hazardous as you're sort of dealing with acknowledging yourself. You're seeing people like riding on bikes and cars. He told me that he doesn't think I'm crazy, but to go to a psychologist for an assessment anyway. They might be able to start things in motion. By the way, I love the font on old increpare games. It's always like really goofy. I don't really get what the green radioactive stuff is here. Presumably you're in a doctor's office or a hospital or something. But I like these old women kind of represent kind of judgmental old gender norms or something, and that's like one problem that I've had being trans, is that a lot of younger people seem to be able to accept it, but older people have a lot of problems and will ask some fairly insulting questions about it. And so I guess it's a thing where these people who are not hazardous to you before have become hazardous. I picked up my first batch of hormone tablets from the pharmacist. I've never been so scared before. So here you're like at an office, and there are like these funny spinning chairs that are hazardous, and also these lamps that seem to give off like weird heat waves, and these overhead things. I think they're ceiling fans. But essentially this communicates to me that like, the office setting has become a lot more hazardous too, because you're having to deal with just things in the environment you're more sensitive to, but also just more sensitive to the way that people treat you in an office setting, and like just dealing with a lot of the stuff that you were kind of like closed off to before, or were repressing, now has become so much of a factor. Now that I've gotten a haircut, I guess I should go get some new clothes. So now you're at the mall and you're dressed more in like feminine clothes, and these little kids, there are all these images of like women sort of splayed about, very abstracted, but very in your face. And then just little kids running around. And it's funny to me because, again, like little kids are one of the worst experiences I've had being trans, where they'll just straight up ask you like, are you a boy or a girl? And it's actually something that I'm very anxious of. I'm always very anxious of meeting little, or having to interact with little kids, because I'm afraid that they're going to ask that. And here there's these old men at, slot machines, and you're a woman wearing pink, and these kinds of people have become a hazard now. You sort of have to avoid engaging with them. My final surgery is approaching. I already feel so much happier in my body. I can't wait to shed the final vestiges of my masculinity. So I haven't had the surgery, partly because I can't afford it. So I can't judge what this feels like, and I can't say that this is representative of all experiences. In that way, I'd say something like dysphoria is much better, but I just find it interesting, the way that it changes who is sort of harmful to you. Like the seagulls are harmful. I don't know, maybe they're just something that is a attack on your body or whatever. But I find it interesting that the man sitting in the chair is harmful, because he's like now kind of a threat to you and your body, and somebody who can kind of take advantage of you in a way that, and see you as a target in a way that, he wouldn't if you were, you hadn't transitioned, if you were being seen as male. And I find that really interesting. Also, this girl who's like either has like a popsicle or on the cell phone is also harmful. I guess like, I get intuitively, like, I understood why that was a hazard, but it's just interesting in a very simple kind of framework of a platformer, which is not something you see increpare do very much at all. You're sort of communicating something about how you interact with the environment just by judging by how it, like, either if you pass through it or not, and it conveys it like extremely simply, and there's so much more subtlety contained there, even in a game where that he views is not very good, that doesn't have a lot of dimensions to it. I still got a lot more subtlety there than I did from something like dysphoria, or I don't know, other experiences. And it was written by a person who is not trans. I think he does identify as like gay or queer, at least. I'm not sure, but okay. It says, I was really great to be able to not show off, but display at all my body with some sense of pride and comfort. So now you're just going home, and you're you feel comfortable in your body now, and that's this is the real me, the me that I've waited a lifetime for. So this kind of ending is just, fairly anticlimactic, just as game over. But I think it's interesting that this game exists. I had no idea that it existed, and I think it sort of portrays something about the trans experience, or from a position, from an outside position that's empathetic, that maybe is not completely accurate in the details, but it gets to the truth of an experience and the sort of hostility and microaggressions to it, which I think is really great. So anyway, yeah, have a good night.